It'll be inside, it'll be outside, it's for families, it's for us. We really want a great turnout for this because she's coming all the way from that city that I love so much. And we're very excited to have her. Huh? Oh, well, then you don't know me at all. Tom knows me. Austin, Texas, yes. I lived there I went to school there. I was just there and I'm going back. And I'm planning a return. That's actually not it, but all right. that works. Anyway, so that's one of our very big announcements. September 13th, we are having a social justice committee / program committee program called Out and About a Cause, which is, you have to say it the right way so that people understand it. So I learned how to do that. Out and About a Cause. It is about a cause, and they're going to be visiting the Underground Railroad Station at the Second Baptist Church. All of the information is in the newsletter. They can accommodate, I think, about 36 or so people can go on this. So the station's in the basement, which is a little bit limited. There's all the information is online and how to pay for it and so forth in advance. So please consider that. I think it's a wonderful opportunity. I want to welcome Nomi Joyrich from Jews for Secular Democracy, and we'll hear from her in just a moment. Howard's giving her life up. That's the sports clap. Yes, the hero. Okay. And I want to acknowledge. I just want to thank Carol Goldsmith, who sponsored tonight's ONEG in memory of her mother, Rita Meyer. May her memory be a blessing. And we're going to hear from readers tonight. Carol is one of them. Jerry and Diana Lieberman, and Kathy Radner and Gail Whitty. Thank you guys for participating. And let's begin with our first reading. As these Shabbat candles that we are about to light give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who bring light. I'd like to ask Deborah and Mark Luria to please light our Shabbat candles.
Ancestors hallowed the Sabbath day. In dark times it was a refuge for them, and in times of prosperity it gave them rest and joy. As a community, we can read. As a community, is that better? I'm not touching it. As a community, we celebrate the opportunity to gather in that spirit, even as we imagine Shabbat anew. May we too find rest from the day's work and refuge from our cares. May we too feel the warmth of love and companionship. May we too feel our joys heightened and our sorrows softened by the love we give and receive.
May we be blessed with Shabbat joy. May we be blessed with Shabbat peace. May we be blessed with Shabbat light.
לכו לרעננה, לכו לרעננה, לכו לרעננה לשבת. לכו לרעננה, לכו לרעננה, לכו לרעננה לשבת. נריה, נריה ליום שמחתנו, וחדמה בשלום. נריה, נריה ליום שמחתנו, בזמיר נריה לו. לכו לרעננה, לכו לרעננה, לכו לרעננה לשבת. לכו לרעננה, לכו לרעננה, לכו לרעננה לשבת. נריה, נריה ליום שמחתנו, נקדמה בשלום. נריה, נריה ליום שמחתנו, בזמיר נריה לו. לכו לרעננה, לכו לרעננה, לכו לרעננה לשבת. לכו לרעננה, לכו לרעננה, לכו לרעננה לשבת.
Perspective on where we have been and where we are going. At other times, in other places, we may feel fragile and alone. Yet here we join together to find strength, to build community as we look with wonder at the universe and seek our place within its vastness. To this place we come to lengthen our perspective. To this place we come to question and explore. In this place we awaken our imaginations. In this place we draw strength as we allow ourselves to dream. Together we share the challenge of an ever-changing world, a world often beyond our control. Together we seek to find meaning, calm our anxieties, understand our purpose. Together we share the burdens and blessings of responsibility. Together we bond as a community, a true gift of Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
I applied my mind to know and search out, to seek understanding and an explanation of things. I sought to find words of delight and what is correctly written.
I sought words of truth.
Understanding is a greater stronghold to the wise man than 10 rulers that are in a city.
Blessed are those who seek words of truth.
Out of the universe, source of our lives, we developed the power of mind and its quest for life's meaning. Yet knowledge is not received as a gift. We must search it to attain understanding.
נפתח לנו שערי צדק, כן וחסד ורחמים. נפתח לנו שערי צדק, כן וחסד ורחמים. אלה שערים לשלום, נפתח לנו ונבוא בם. אלה שערים לשלום, נפתח לנו ונבוא בם. נפתח לנו שערי צדק, כן וחסד ורחמים. נפתח לנו שערי צדק, כן וחסד ורחמים.
We say what we believe. We believe what we say. As humanistic Jews, we do not plead for supernatural intervention to bring healing to those who are ill or injured. We seek to be present for them in the hope that this will contribute to their recovery. We do not ask that our dead find protection under divine wings of mercy. We acknowledge that the dead are gone and that caring for their survivors is what now matters. We not look to the heavens to send us peace. We recognize that as an exclusively human responsibility. We use our communal rituals and celebrations to empower ourselves by gathering to affirm what we believe about the nature of reality and the responsibilities of humanity. We are strengthened. For the humanistic Jewish believer, this is the essence of what some call the religious experience. Surrounded by a like-minded community, we are liberated to say what we really believe. Then, strengthened by each other, we can better manifest our beliefs in the world each and every day.
So I said to Kathy as she came up here, if those of you who don't know, Kathy is our new president. And I said, this is a good reading for you. And what I meant by that was, this is like our manifesto, right?
Right.
And this is the kind of thing that brings us together. So to hear our leader say it, I think that's really important. All right, now we'll sing Eifel Ri by our original leader. Eifel Ri, o Ri, Eifel Tikwati. Tikwati bi, Eifel kochi, kochi bi, vegambach, vegambach, Eifel kochi, kochi bi, vegambach, vegambach. Where is my light? My light is in me. Where is my hope? My hope is in me. Where is my strength? My strength is in me and in you, and in you. Where is my strength? My strength is in me and in you, and in you.
In the pursuit of a just world, may we hold fast to the ideals that give life its deepest meaning. Among these are the courage to hope, even when hope is scarce, to dream of peace, even when surrounded by uncertainty. Though the path to peace may be long, let us never lose sight of it. May we remember that peace is not only the absence of struggle, but the fullness of life that blossoms from justice, security, and compassion. Wherever there are struggles to achieve such a peace, let wisdom always guide actions. May we be vessels of peace, always carrying it in our hearts and minds, even when we seek to protect what we hold dear. And may the world we leave behind be one that reflects our highest ideals: freedom, understanding, and enduring harmony among all people.
Na'aseh shalom, shalom ba'olam. Na'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam ve'imru shalom. Na'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Shalom, shalom ba'olam, na'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam ve'imru shalom.
In this community where we find strength and common purpose, we turn our minds and hearts toward all those who need our love and support, those who are ill, those who suffer pain of the body or spirit, those who are lonely, those who have been wronged. Tonight, we extend our well wishes to these beloved members of our community, to Lee Bricker, to Saul Foreman, and to Jim Walker, as I know that there are others whom you'd like to share their names as we go around the room, beginning with Jerry. Yes? Thank you. Jerry. Anybody else on this side? Diana? Thank you. In the back, did anybody? Go ahead, Howard. Anybody on this side? Deborah? Did I miss anybody? May all who suffer know that they are not alone, that we are there. May they be healed quickly. May they experience a complete recovery, a refuah shlema, the renewal of their bodies and the renewal of their spirits. Today is the 679th day of captivity and the 97th Shabbat for the hostages who remain in Gaza, among whom are 50 or 20 that we believe to be still among the living. May those who continue to endure captivity find the courage to carry on. May those who love them not despair of their return. May they soon emerge from their confinement whole in body and in spirit, to know, once again, the embrace of loved ones.
Makom ha'koach betocheinu, mekorot ha'brachah mechevroteinu. May the source of strength that dwells so deep within us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing. And let us say, Shalom. Mekom ha'koach betocheinu, mekorot ha'brachah mechevroteinu. May those in need of healing know refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Shalom.
'Tis a fearful thing to love what death can touch, a fearful thing to love, to hope, to dream, to be and oh to lose. A thing for fools this, and a sacred thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a sacred thing to love, what death has touched. Our thoughts turn to those who are no longer with us, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every people and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We recall now our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have taken into our hearts with our own. Tonight we observe, and you see me playing with my phone here because I want to make sure we have all of them, and I noticed that there was a printing problem here. Tonight we remember these beloved members of our community and their families. Jackie Bieber-Graken, Francis Byrne, Charles Bonet, Lawrence Dennis Castleman, Jacob Abraham Citron, Clara Cohen, Marilyn Dorfman, Stanley Dorfman, Justine Good, Earl Lapp, Erwin Lappin Liederman, Esther Levin, Harry Lopez, Harold Luria, Nettie Mandel, Rita Meyer, Shirley Malinsky, Michael Muroff, Lorraine Pivnik, and Samuel G. Walker. At this time, if there's someone whose memory that you are thinking about and would like to share, we'll start over here. Anybody on this side? Anybody over here? We say Yehi Zichram Livracha. The older I get, the more I understand it. As we lose people, all we're left with is the blessing of their memory. And it can be a great blessing indeed. If you can do so comfortably, I invite you to please rise as together we recite our humanistic interpretation of Kaddish. Nitkadal v'nitkadash beruach ha'adam. Let us dignify and ennoble all people in the spirit of our shared humanity. Let us acclaim the preciousness of life. Let us show gratitude for life by approaching it with reverence. Let us embrace the whole world, even as we wrestle with its parts. Let us each, in our own way, take up our share in serving the world and seeking truth. May our commitment to life help us to strengthen healing of spirit and peace of mind. May justice and peace permeate and comfort the house of Israel and all those who dwell on earth. And let us say, Ken Yehi, may it be so. I'm always impressed with that particular interpretation. It has the rhythm and the cadence of Yitzkadal v'Yitzkadash, right? But that, as you may know, is a praise of God, an endless, what we call doxology, just over and over. And this is a praise of reality, of what we human beings can do. And we do it as we praise God in other times in our Jewish people's history and in other places in our community today. We now acknowledge our real humanity, and we make it a tribute to those who came before us. I just wanted to share that because it was something that was on my mind. So, tonight we are happy to welcome a friend of our community, a friend of our synagogue, a friend of our, more than a friend of our, an employee of our movement. For those of you who don't know, Jews for Secular Democracy is an initiative of the Society for Humanistic Judaism, the brainchild of Paul Golan, our director. He'll be here again with us in April. Nomi is a lifelong advocate for interfaith cooperation and social justice. She is the Michigan director of JFASD. She has focused in recent years, both in that organization and in her own life, on reproductive freedom, on economic justice and voting rights. And I would venture to say that being an informed voter is a very big part of that, certainly a big part of being a humanist and a humanistic Jew. She's a former social worker, small business owner, a child of Holocaust survivors, and a member of, I'm sad to say, Temple Kol Ami, but I'm happy that you're happy there. She lives here in Farmington Hills with her husband and 2 daughters. Listen, everybody has to be where they're comfortable, right? Oh, okay, well, please do, because this is what I was given by I think by you at some point, so I apologize if it's not up to date. But I know that the information we're going to receive tonight is very, very up to date, so please join me in welcoming them.
So I'm here to talk about ballot proposals. Let me pull it up. And this is called Know Before You Sign. And there are, I'm sure, if I ask for a hand, can you hear me, by the way? Okay. How many people have ever been approached by anybody anywhere to sign a ballot proposal? Okay. It's really good to understand what they are before someone comes to approach you to sign, so that you can make an informed decision about whether or not you want to sign it. There are over a dozen possible ballot proposals that you might be getting approached to sign. So I'm going to go through all of them. I have a Google Doc where I keep them updated. If you sign the sheet that Audrey's going to pass around, then I'll give you the link to the Google Doc. And as more things come into the field, as efforts stop, I'll keep that Google Doc updated, so you don't have to come back to my presentation every month, as it's constantly being updated. And then eventually, I will convert this into a deep dive into the ones that are actually made it on the ballot, so you know whether or not to, help you decide whether to vote for or against them. But this is just to help you decide whether or not you want to sign them. So if you can go ahead to the next slide. All right, this is me. You've already been, okay, next one. All right, so there's 3 kinds of ballot proposals. There are constitutional amendments, there are ones that will enact state law, and there are referendums to repeal a law. This season of ballot collection, you're going to be seeing all 3 of those. I should also say there is another kind of petition people might ask you to sign, a nominating position. A nominating petition, that's to help get somebody on the ballot. I'm not really going to be talking about those, except for to say that you can only vote, you can only sign as many as there are open seats. So for example, let's say it's a petition to get somebody nominated to the city council. If there are 2 seats open in the city council, you can sign 2 petitions for nominating. So if it's like for Senate, like for example, when Jeremy Moss is here, he's probably going to bring, he's running for Congress. He's probably going to bring his nominating petitions. There's 1 seat open. You can sign 1 petition. So don't, in my opinion, don't sign a nominating petition unless you're pretty sure that's the person who you're going to want to vote for. Each one of these requires a different number of signatures, and that is determined by what the turnout was at the last gubernatorial election. And when people are collecting signatures, they have 180 days to collect the signatures. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, he told me I didn't have to say please. Okay, next slide. All right. So what are the rules for circulators? So first of all, you have to understand that most of the circulators, some are volunteers, but most circulators are paid. And they get paid usually by the signature. So some people are going to be very pushy about wanting you to sign it. And some will even say, like, I need the money, like, sign my petition. So, and it's also important to know that there is no requirement for circulators to accurately present the petition. In fact, it's legal for them to completely lie about it. Like, I could give you a petition and say, please sign this, it's gonna give free ice cream to everybody. Okay, you know, like, you can just totally make up what it is. The requirement for understanding the petition lies 100% with the person who is signing it, not the person who is circulating it. So what are you allowed to do as a signer? First of all, you can only sign a petition once. So if it's a petition, like I was in here a couple years ago collecting signatures for the reproductive freedom for all, you can only sign it once, no matter how strongly you agree or disagree with it. You know, you can't sign it for your friend. You can't say, like, my husband agrees with me, I'm signing his name. You can sign it one time. You're allowed to stand near the circulator and potential signers. You're allowed to correct misinformation that they're giving potential signers, but you're not allowed to touch or destroy petitions unless you're touching it so that you can read it or sign it. And you can also, most importantly, encourage everyone you know to really understand petitions before they sign it. Next. So you're going to notice as I'm going through these that some of the petitions that are collecting signatures compete with one another. So if proposals pass, if more than one proposal passes that competes with one another, then the Michigan Supreme Court will decide which aspects of that can exist at the same time. And whenever there's a conflict, then whichever one got the highest vote total is the one that's going to prevail. So, for example, you'll see there's ones about taxes coming up that are in complete opposition to one another. If they both pass, the ones that gets the higher will win. Next slide. So the first section of petitions that I'm going to talk about are voting. So next slide. So before I talk about what the proposals are going to do, let me tell you what the status quo is. So the status quo is that you can register to vote online, through mail, in person. There are many ways that you can prove your residency to register to vote. And if you don't have your ID with you, you can sign an affidavit swearing to who your identity is. It is currently a felony offense for any non-citizen to attempt to vote. And if you are a non-citizen and you attempt to vote, then you can be subject to prison, to fines, and to deportation. And this is true in every single state, that it is against the law for non-citizens to vote or to attempt to vote. There are some municipalities that allow non-citizens to vote in local elections. Like, for example, Farmington Hills, we could pass a law saying residents of Farmington Hills can vote even if they're not citizens for city council. We don't have a law like that, but we could. But in all 50 states, it is against the law for non-citizens to vote in state level elections or in federal elections. There are approximately 0.0000, there's a lot of zeros, 28% of ballots cast in Michigan are done by people who don't have the right to vote. And that's not just non-citizens, that's like you're not old enough, you don't really live here, you know, all kinds of reasons. So that's the status quo. Next. And are there any questions up until this point? Okay. There are two different efforts to mandate proof of citizenship. And I will say in full transparency, this is there are two proposals where Jews for a Secular Democracy has an official position. And this is one of them. So I want to say that transparently. Most of these are going to be totally neutral. So there's two efforts. One is brought forth by the Committee to Protect Voters' Rights, which is also called Prove It Michigan. And the other is Americans for Citizens Voting. And just to make it even more confusing, Americans for Citizens Voting has two petitions that are almost identical to one another. I'm going to talk about them as the same because they're almost the same, and they're going to choose which one, but they got two different ones approved. So there are basically three petitions for this. Next. These require what is called, what I will be referring to as DPOC, Documentary Proof of Citizenship. DPOC is usually a passport or it's a combination of a driver's license or a state ID and a birth certificate. I'm going to talk more about that, about what DPAC is next. So there's these two different competing groups, and I'm going to try and go through some of the differences. They're very similar. So Prove It Michigan, they both will require DPAC. Prove It Michigan will require it for new voter registrations. Americans for Citizens Voting will require it for every single voter for every single election. You will prove your citizenship. Michigan doesn't list which documents will satisfy this requirement, and ACV does. Prove It Michigan does not make it clear whether or not it applies to updated registrations, like you move. You move from Farmington Hills to Farmington. You update your registration? It's legally unclear. For ACV, it's clear. Every voter, every election, every circumstance, you're proving your citizenship. With both of them, if you don't have your proof of citizenship when you go to vote, they give you what's called a provisional ballot, which is not counted. And then you have 6 days after the election to go to your Secretary of State and to prove, or your clerk, and to prove that you're a citizen. For most people, if you can't prove you're a citizen, like you don't have a passport on election day, you're not going to have a passport 6 days later either, right? But if you left it at home, you didn't realize, then you have 6 days. Okay, the Prove It Michigan requires the Secretary of State to review the voter rolls and to remove people, which already happens, that the Secretary of State removes people periodically. It does not spell out the process. Americans for Citizens Voting also creates criminal penalties. So if you're an election worker and you don't comply, whether it's intentionally or accidentally, then you can go to jail for that. So if you think it's hard to recruit poll workers now, and it also allows for any citizen to challenge someone else's right to vote. So I can go to the clerk and I can say, I don't think Audrey's a citizen. I don't have to have a reason. I'm just saying I don't think she's a citizen. I have the right, any citizen has a right to challenge somebody else's. Next slide. Prove It Michigan is a Michigan-born initiative. It was promoted first by Representative Posthumus. It leaves a lot of things for the legislature to decide. What documents will be accepted? What is a hardship? Oh yes, they both also, I forgot to say, indicate that if you have an economic hardship, then the state will pay for you to get ID. Neither of them say what is an economic hardship, how you prove an economic hardship. Also, what will it pay for? Like if you're taking the day off of work, if you have to pay for a bus or a Lyft to go and spend the day at the Secretary's of State's office, like what are they paying for? Neither of them say that. It won't say how the state funds these changes, what the process for purging are. They both say that the absentee ballots still have to prove your citizenship, but they don't explain how. Americans for Citizens Voting is a national organization. They are introducing pretty much the exact same proposal in every swing state. Next. Okay, so the implications of both of these, like I said, there's some fine differences between them, but the implications of both of them are pretty much the same. There are about 10% of eligible voters do not have the necessary documents that will meet it. In case you're wondering, your driver's license is not sufficient, and even the real ID that a lot of you have is not sufficient. That does not prove you are a citizen. Okay, this will disproportionately impact people who are low income, who have changed their name, who are college students, disabled people, elderly people who are formerly incarcerated. All of these people, it will disproportionately impact. This will mean that everybody has to go to register in person. It will eliminate the ability to register through a voter registration drive or through the mail or online. You have to go in person. It eliminates the option of signing an affidavit of identity. You should know that the cost of a passport is approximately $130. It adds additional cost to the municipalities. This is going to make it a lot more expensive to run elections. Estimates are saying it's going to disenfranchise probably tens of thousands of Michiganders. When they did this in Kansas, they had 33,000 eligible voters who were disenfranchised. It was 12% of people attempting to register for the first time, eligible people attempting to register for the first time were unable to. And this adds a layer of red tape to the process of voting. I do want to say something about red tape. And in case it's not already clear what our official position is, we oppose this bill because we see this as an attack on democracy. There has been a lot of message testing done. If you want to talk to your friends to try and convince them not to vote for this, the number one messaging that was found to move the most people is talking about red tape. You know, that's the one we say, this is going to add red tape to voting. That may or may not resonate with you, but for message testing, that is the most impactful message. Next slide. So the pros of this is what supporters say. This is going to increase our election security. It's going to make sure that non-citizens don't vote. Opponents say this will add red tape to the voting process, create obstacles to voting, and it will disenfranchise tens of thousands of Michiganders. And because this is the one we're taking an official position on, I will also tell you that Voters Not Politicians has a group of volunteers standing by that if you call up this spotter hotline, which I will have on my Google Doc that I'll send out to anybody who wants it, then they will try and send a volunteer to stand near that circulator so that they can give accurate information to people. So you call and say, I'm at the Farmington Farmers Market and there's someone, they'll try and get a volunteer there right now. Before I move away from the citizens voting, are there any questions? Okay, next slide. Yes. Yeah. This is an excellent question that the legislature will figure out if it passes. This will be if it gets enough signatures, this will be on the ballot in 26. So I will say that the easiest way to stop something you don't like from happening is to stop it from getting on the ballot in the first place. I used to be a person who said, I'll sign all of them and then it will go before voters and voters can decide. And then I would sign something and then I would spend all my time fighting against the thing that I had signed. So I'm like, I'm not doing that anymore. I won't sign, personally, I won't sign anything unless I plan to vote for it. So my suggestion is to decline to sign this. Yes. Yes. Yeah, and there's a reason why these are being pushed in swing states. I mean, they're, yeah. Yeah, that's where they're being pushed, in swing states. Yes. Yes. Well, again, where things exist in conflict with one another, it will be up to the Michigan Supreme Court to decide what can still exist. For example, this will not change early voting. There's something, it will not change that you can vote absentee without a reason. There are certain things that we passed in Prop 2 that won't be affected by this. But there's a lot that we passed in Prop 2, a lot, that will be nullified. Yes? That is an excellent question, and people in the military are very concerned about it because it's the same question as for absentee ballots, and also if you have to update your registration. And also, I learned something recently. I was talking to a woman who was born on a military base overseas, and she hasn't been able to get her passport. She said, you can't just go to your local person. You have to call the Department of Defense to get your original birth certificate, like as if there's just a phone number to call for the Department of Defense, right? So that's a big concern Okay, I'm going to move on, but I will be here during Kiddush if anybody has more questions. Okay, next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, so there are a couple that have to do with vaguely election reform. This is, I'm going to give a very brief description about this. If you're interested in ranked choice voting, I do encourage you to invite somebody to come and do a talk just about it because it's more complicated than the way I'm going to be able to just describe it. But this was a constitutional amendment that changes the voting system so that voters rank their candidates by preference. And then if your first choice candidate doesn't get, it's 50% plus one vote, then your vote is then counted for your second choice. If your second choice drops off, it's counted for your third choice, and so on. This is also called an instant runoff election. This would not apply to every election. It applies to president, Congress, U.S. Senate, governor, secretary of state, and attorney general. Okay, so if this does not apply to voting for your state representative or your mayor. You know, it's very limited. And it would also pull back the primary by a few months, and it would move it to June. This has no impact on presidential primaries. Next slide. I have this cartoon comes to us, I took this directly from the ranked choice voting website, and here I'll kind of explain it. So the way it is now, the person who gets the plurality, the most votes, not necessarily the majority, will win. So here we have Luke Skywalker, he gets 60% of the vote, and Darth Vader gets 40% of the vote. But in the other example here, Princess Leia decides she wants to jump into. So Princess Leia and Luke Skywalker, they kind of split the vote that are in favor of, the Force, right? And he gets 25%, she gets 35%, Darth Vader gets the same 40%, and he is the new president. All right, but with ranked choice voting, you're going to get to rank them. So we are going to make the assumption that if either Luke or Leia are your first choice, that your second choice is the other one, your second choice isn't Darth Vader. So in this case, Luke doesn't get a majority, nobody has a majority. So all of Luke's votes are then recounted, they're redistributed. Now Leia gets 60%, Darth Vader still gets his same 40%, and we have President Leia. So this is a very simple explanation of how it works. Next slide. So what supporters say is that this allows voters to vote for their preferred candidate without being afraid of wasting your vote. And it results in electing a candidate who may not be everyone's first choice, but who is at least acceptable to the majority of voters. Opponents say this is confusing. It could increase what we call ballot fatigue, which means that people just stop voting and the lower ballots never get voted on at all. And there are concerns about transparency as things are recalculated and rerunning. So that's the pros and cons of this. Any questions? Yes. So I was just, thank you for that question, because I've had 3 people text me that question in the last week. So I went to the campaign director of RCV to ask, and they said that that isn't the case, that you still can vote straight party, and that also you can rank your parties. So you can say, my first choice is the Republican Party, my second choice is the Socialist Party, my third choice is the Democratic Party, whatever, you can also rank it. But I'm guessing, I just heard that there was a talk that Lisa Brown gave where she said that. Is that where you heard it? Yeah, and I know somebody from the campaign is going to call Lisa to talk about why she thinks that. But the campaign believes that there's not a conflict. Okay, next. All right. So this is Michiganders for Money Out of Politics. Actually next week is going to be going to the Board of State Canvassers to submit their language. So this would ban the state's utility companies and any corporation that holds a state contract worth more than $250,000 from contributing to candidates. And it would also ban anybody who has contributed to a candidate from receiving a $250,000 or more state contract. So this also would mandate that groups running political ads have to disclose who their donors are if they're running an ad. So What supporters say is that this is going to help get dark money out of politics and increase transparency, and it will help lessen corporate interest in government. What opponents say is that companies have a right and an obligation to advocate for their best interests, and PACs just help their members and their employees collectively have a better voice. Okay, next. Okay, so there's two that are tax reform. Go to the next slide. Next slide. Okay, Axe My Tax, this would eliminate all, and when I say all, I mean literally all property tax, business tax, and residential tax. It would eliminate all millages, including millages that have already passed. Like right now, there's a millage for the DIA. You probably have a millage for your local library. It would eliminate all of them. And a percentage of that lost funding would come from reallocating a portion of other taxes, and it would make it very difficult to ever pass any new taxes. It would have to have either 60% voter approval or 2/3 of the majority in the legislature. So it would make it really hard to ever increase the taxes. So next slide. Supporters say that this is true property ownership. This is directly from their website. There are thousands of ways to fund schools, police, fire, library, blah, blah, without leveraging your personal property. I will say they do not identify what those thousands of ways are. And they point out that property tax is the only tax where you're going to fear losing something if you don't pay it. You know, you already bought your house, and if you don't pay your property tax, you could lose your house. What opponents say is that this would cut $20 billion from funding for schools, roads, recreation, and public safety. Their proposed reallocation of funds would make up a tiny percentage of lost funding. It's going to result in massive funding cuts to public schools. Some say this would effectively defund all public schools, and it will make it nearly impossible to increase taxes. I'm going to move on and stop for less questions just because I see that I'm probably running out of time. So next slide. Invest in my kids. You'll probably, if you're out this weekend, they're just starting to collect this now. This is a constitutional amendment that would impose what they call a fair share surcharge. It's essentially an extra tax on annual taxable income that is more than $1 million per couple or $500,000 per individual. So this additional 5% tax is only on the income above that. So if you're an individual who makes $600,000 a year, then you would have an additional 5% on that top 100,000, not on the full 600,000. The money will all go to the state's school aid fund. It requires that this money be spent only to support classrooms in local school districts, including technical and career education, also retaining teachers and reducing class size and improving facilities. Next slide. So the pros of this is that this would allow us to lower our class size, recruit and retain more teachers, improve our facilities, and hopefully improve academic achievement. Opponents say, well, first of all, opponents are upset that it's called a fair share surcharge when that's misleading when it really is a new tax. Opponents say that this could hurt businesses and economic investment. It unfairly advantages public schools because the money will go to public schools, not to private schools. And they say that the poor achievement in Michigan is not due to the lack of funding, that this won't really help our academic achievement. Okay, next slide. Okay, this one is a referendum, voters to stop pay cuts. And this would, so referendum means it's going to repeal a law. Now, next slide. This is probably the most confusing one. I'm going to give you a little brief history. In 2018, One Fair Wage submitted its signatures for a proposal to raise the minimum wage. We knew it was going to pass. It was overwhelmingly in polls. And so in 2019, before it had a chance to go to the voters, this was in the final days of Governor Snyder. They adopted this bill knowing it was going to pass anyway, and then they immediately gutted it completely and signed it into law. And it has been in the court system ever since then. In 2024, the Michigan Supreme Court ruled that it is unconstitutional to do what is called adopt and amend. So they did not comment on the value of the law. but just saying that the process where the legislature adopted it and gutted it was unconstitutional. So they said the original law had to stand, which was the original proposal as voters signed their ballot petition. In 2025, the Michigan legislature said, we don't like the way it was in the beginning, we're changing it, and the biggest fight about it has to do with what's called the sub-minimum wage, which is what you get if you're a tipped worker. If you're a tipped worker, you don't get the full minimum wage, you get a percentage of the minimum wage, and then the tips are supposed to make up the difference. So that was the biggest issue. And now in 2025, this is going to go on the ballot. Next slide. So currently, tipped workers make $4.13 an hour plus tips, and minimum wage is $10.56 an hour. And the sub-minimum wage will increase gradually up to $7.50 an hour, while the regular minimum wage will increase to $15 an hour. That's what it is right now. Let me go on. If this passes, then the sub-minimum wage for tipped workers will phase out completely. There'll be no more sub-minimum wage, and by 2031, everybody, whether you're a tipped worker or a regular worker, will reach $15 an hour. And tipped workers will be allowed to keep whatever tips they make on top of their wage, but their wage will be full minimum wage. Next slide. So supporters say that this is what voters wanted when they signed the petition. You never voted on it, but just based on polling and signing. And in states where there is no sub-minimum wage, those servers saw an increase in pay, and the restaurant industry didn't suffer. This has been done in, I can't remember, I think 8 states. Servers get to keep their tips on top, and supporters say this is going to increase the pay for workforce that's very disenfranchised, very impoverished. Opponents say this is going to kill the restaurant industry. Restaurants are going to be forced to raise their prices. Customers are going to tip less. So that's the sort of pros and cons. I mean, obviously next slide. Obviously the pros and cons are completely opposite one another, so you can look at the research of what the other states that are doing it, what they find. Did you have a question? Oh, thank you. Okay, next slide. And next slide. So these are other possible ballot initiatives. I'm going to go through these ones really quick that they're on the horizon. They haven't submitted language yet. These may or may not happen. So the first one is the bottle bill. This will make water bottles eligible for deposit. Right now, those single-use water bottles, you can't get a deposit on it. So this would make that. This is being pushed by the Michigan Environmental Council and also by Senator McCann. Next one. So former Governor Snyder has announced that he is going to spearhead a ballot proposal aimed at improving third grade test scores. That is the sum total of what we know about this. He has said that it's not going to include more funding. It's not going to include, there's no tax involved in this. So we don't know what I mean, I can't have an opinion on this because I don't know what he's proposing. I also would like for third grade reading scores to improve. So let's see what he comes up with. He's going to come up with something. Okay, next one. Michigan marriage equality. If this happens, then Jews for a Secular Democracy will be taking an official stance in support of this. So at the moment, since 2004, Michigan's constitution states that marriage is between a man and a woman. If the U.S. Supreme Court overturns the Obergefell decision, which we have all read that they are considering doing, if that happens, same-sex marriage is already illegal in Michigan, okay, according to our Constitution. So if it's thrown back to the states, it's banned here, okay? So this is a very equivalent situation of what we did with the Reproductive Freedom for All petition, right? Where abortion was already banned in Michigan. It was only protected here because of the U.S. Supreme Court. And that's why we did the constitutional amendment to change the Constitution and enshrine abortion rights. So this is a similar effort to guarantee marriage equality in Michigan by having a constitutional amendment. Yes? So I believe, I don't know what happens to same-sex couples who are married in Michigan. They have to be, right, yes, thank you, Rabbi. Right. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. That's what I was going to say, that it has to, you have to recognize, for any, I'm going to repeat some of that just for the sake of people watching it who didn't hear it on the microphone, that if you're married in another state where it's legal, it would still have to be recognized here, and if you're already married, it will still be recognized. Yes. Yes. Oh, let me come back to that then. Let me finish talking about this, and then we'll come back to that one. So when I just talked to the person who's heading this up, and there's a good chance that they're going to wait until next year to start this because of you cannot imagine how expensive it is to run one of these campaigns. I think the Reproductive Freedom for All campaign was $50 million. Okay, it's like unbelievably expensive. So I think that this one probably does not yet have enough money to go forward, and they're going to wait a year, but that's still undetermined. So be on the lookout for this one. All right, the last one I'm going to talk about is the Constitutional Convention, called the CON-CON. Nobody's going to ask you to sign for this. This is automatically going to be on your ballot. According to our Michigan Constitution, every 16 years, this question is going to be proposition number 1, whether or not we want to have a statewide constitutional convention. We haven't had one since the 60s. I can't remember the exact year. If this passes, then there will be one delegate from every legislative district will be elected. They'll run for office just the same way that everybody else runs for office. And that at the Constitutional Convention, the delegates will have the ability to not change anything at all, to change one comma, to throw the entire thing away and start over. And there's no time limit. It doesn't say how long the convention lasts. So it can be a long process. And after they're done, then voters have the chance to approve it or reject it. So usually, and by usually I mean since this has been in the Constitution since the 60s, no one has campaigned for this on either side. And it has overwhelmingly been defeated, like 3-1 defeated. This is the first year that there's an effort to get this to pass. House Majority Leader, the Speaker of the House, Matt Hall, has already stated that he wants this constitutional convention. There have been a lot of progressive changes in our Constitution through referendum, a ton of things, legalizing marijuana, the anti-gerrymandering, abortion rights, a lot of voting rights, tons of things in our Constitution that progressive changes have been made recently. And there's definitely conservative elements who would like to see our Constitution, revisited to take those out. So this year, I am expecting that there is going to be a lot of campaigning about the CON-CON. And this will be proposition number 1 on your ballot. So when, not this November, but in November of 26. So when it comes closer, I'll talk more about it. Next slide. And so really the bottom line is that you should know before you sign. Be aware of what these will do before you sign. Next slide. And feel free to contact me with questions. Feel free to invite me to speak to your organization or wherever you want to go. And if you want to be updated with the Google Doc, then sign my sheet, and I will email you with the Google Doc, and we'll change it when there are changes. And thank you very much.
So we'll, as long as we have minds as great as Alexander Hamilton's and James Madison's, we'll be okay with a constitutional convention. And we know the country's only gone forward in that kind of reasoning and thinking since then. So don't worry about it. We're fine. Okay. Thank you again, Nomi. That was really interesting. Let's sing a song, and then we'll go to the ONAG.
May we peace as we go on our way. May we be guided by love. May we be blessed with health and joy. May this be our blessing. Shalom. 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 May this be our blessing. Shalom. 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 May this be our blessing. Shalom. May we be sheltered by the wings of peace. May we abide in safety and in love. May grace and compassion find their way to everyone. May this be our blessing. Shalom. 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 May this be our blessing. Shalom. 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 May this be our blessing. Shalom.
Thank you, Joseph, for the beautiful music, David for the streaming, Arthur for the slides, and thank you, Carol, for the Oneg Shabbat that we're all about to enjoy. I saw there were some very interesting things on tonight's menu, so B'tei Avon, which means bon appetit in Hebrew. Thanks, everybody. Shabbat Shalom.